Good morning, everyone. Jim Clark here at the Synchronicity Sanctuary in Central Virginia, here to share another contemplative focus with you. And that focus that I want to share with you today is who am I? Who am I choosing to be? The secret lies within is the message of all ancient mysteries and great mystical teachers. We have been told again and again to seek God not in the heavens above, not out there, but rather within ourselves. It is the ultimate irony. And that is a contemplation that I had from my teacher in many different ways throughout the years of his teaching before he passed away, in his body anyway. So, who am I choosing to be? In my experience with this contemplation, it is a contemplation that brings us to actually focus on where our feet are and where we are in relation to the acceptance of the truth that we are the God that we seek, or we are the consciousness that we think is out there. So that there is no separation. That's the ultimate lesson right there. So, but when you have been through the evolutionary cycle in your spiritual evolution, you have become completely convinced that that is the truth, that you are separate from whatever God or deity you recognize, and that separation is the dominant factor in your experience, and so therefore, for some reason or some inexplicable happening, you have been cast out of that you don't belong to that deity automatically, let's put it that way. So you're not a member of any sacred deity or God or anything else, because for whatever reason you're not there, because there is up there or out there somewhere or down there, depending on what your belief system is. But at any rate, you're an isolated human being, and for some reason you are separate from what you think is sacred. So this is a theme, of course, we all know. We can see it if you have any knowledge of history. You can see this throughout the ages. As long as there's been people to write down something and record the belief systems and the thinking of their times, this is a theory or a theme that shows up all over the world through all time. And probably the earliest mystery schools of sacred teaching that tell us that God is not out there but within ourselves happened many thousands of years ago in India, or areas close to India, the Far East. But they were also, even then, they were exclusive, and they had to kind of remain hidden because it ran against the grain of the common belief system. So you would be a heretic if you used to openly teach these things back in those days, which many people did, and were crucified for it. So people hang on to their belief system very, very strongly because that's what they developed in their evolutionary cycle when they were going the other way, when they were conscious of being one with everything, and yet had to go into the evolutionary cycle to participate in the creation game. It took many lifetimes before you became fully sold that you were a separate human being and that you were no longer in touch with whatever is sacred to you. So that habit and that kind of belief system we carry with us. And when we have been fulfilled in that experience of being separate, we create a kind of like a extreme in that polarity, in that negative contractive polarity, and then whenever you reach any extreme in the polarized field of experience, it shifts the other way. And then your evolutionary cycle begins, and there's some awakening. There's something that tells you, wait, there is the connection, and I'm not separate from God or the universe or whatever it is. And then we start to journey that journey, about returning back to realizing that we are the one source that is all and everything, the source of life. So, and it's a long process to do that. It's not something that you do overnight or even in one lifetime, because the habit and the belief that you are separate has been developed to such an extent that it will continue to come up for you. And your ability to integrate and accept the ancient wisdom tradition mysteries about being one with everything is limited. You haven't quite got there yet, because there's still all this other data in you that says that you are separate and that you're not holy and that you're not sacred and so forth and so on. And I've seen this demonstrated here at this sanctuary over the 30 years that I've been here, excuse me, by people who would show up and how they would show up, how long they would be here, how often they would come, and so forth and so on. And some people would come here once, and then that would be all we'd see of them. One experience, one time they would come close to our teacher and experience his energetic, which is the oneness that is, and that would be all they could integrate. It would take them years to integrate that one experience, because they were still pretty much fully locked into separation, the experience of separation, and the belief that they were separate. So, it's like it creates a conflict within themselves, and they have to resolve that conflict. They have to integrate that experience that they had of oneness when the moment they were here, the moment they were exposed to the energetic of a authentic master, or if they had just somehow spontaneously had a momentary experience of oneness, however it came to them, it would be a whole lot to integrate. And there's so much in them that says the opposite, that conflict must be resolved before they can move on. So it's a normal thing. It's part of the process in the creation game for we as human beings to shift from I am to I am, from being I am not. And it's a slow process, it's a gradual one, but as you keep going through this evolutionary process, whatever you take with you when you're done with this lifetime, for example, whatever you have gathered in that sense and integrated and to the point of complete acceptance, kind of like how that's another way to put it is how much have you surrendered your ego in the processes that you're going through in this lifetime. Because the more you're still attached to your ego, the more you are still holding on to that belief that God is out there and I'm here and I'm separate, and on, that same thing. So as long as you keep hanging on to that, and to the degree you hang on to that, you still have more journeys to go in the gradual process of illumination. And as I saw here, I've seen all levels of that here. And I was out in the world for a few days on a kind of a vacation, just returned yesterday, and got back out into the world after living here in the sanctuary for all these many years. It was one of the first times I've been out in the world for quite a long time. And it was quite interesting to experience both myself in that experience and in that context, and also to observe that context and fully get how active people are in the experience of I am not. You're showing up, you're choosing to be other than the truth that you are. You're attached to your name, your profession, your job, your place where you live, your family, and on and on and on. So, and it's all perfectly appropriate. It's just part of the creation game, and it means either you honor that part of the cycle, the evolutionary, involutionary cycle, or just that they're cycles. But the truth of who we are is the same for everyone. So you honor that in people that you meet and interact with in the world, regardless of where their feet are. It doesn't matter. They're doing what they have to do. They're having the experience that they absolutely have to have in order to proceed towards the realization that they are one with all and everything. We may not understand that. We won't understand that because that experience is unique to them. We are all unique expressions of Source. So what we have to do and what we have to experience in order to complete the cycle of I am not to I am, it's going to be different for all of us. And that's what's happening in the world today. That's what's happening, always happening. That's the only thing that's really happening in the world. That people are having the experience that they need to have so that they can evolve their own awareness and to ultimate complete acceptance of the truth of who they are and the ultimate complete surrender of the ego to that truth. So egos are threatened by the truth because they're not real. And they seem real and we experience them as real. As long as you're in a human body, you have to have an ego. That's part of what the game is. But you can reach a point where you can accept your own ego for what it is and honor that ego for what it is, and yet continue to journey the journey towards oneness simultaneous to having that ego that you have. It's not getting in your way, but I know that when I first started meditating, I always thought it was getting in the way until I gradually learned better and then kept going and kept meditating until I am at the point of my evolution that I am today. And this is the only thing that I would say to anybody, that if you really want to know the truth of who you are, don't necessarily believe anything. Just do the practice of meditation and do it every day. The more you meditate, the quicker you'll get there. You'll come to a point where you have gained insight into the truth of who you are. You may not go all the way to being enlightened, as we say, but you will reach a point in your experience that you will realize that the truth of who we are, the God that you seek, and so forth and so on, is in here, in the heart, in the center of your own being. And when you realize that, you've gone a great ways in terms of coming to the end of your cycle of being born and dying, being born and dying. The endless cycle of lifetimes can come to an end for you as far as being fully involved and unaware in that game. And this is where some people become masters. This is where some people become teachers. And for most people, it's not that at all. It's not necessary. The power of being one and living in that realization, the power of fully accepting who you are and developing that presence of yourself, as opposed to the ego presence that you've always been, is enormous. It's so much more power in that, which I experienced when I was on my so-called vacation. And it was a great validation of all the years of practice that I've had here. But it really points to one thing, and that is, if you do the work, if you do the practice, if you have used contemplations such as this to kind of go into yourself, not because you want some kind of a verbal answer or a conceptual answer, but so that you will create the experiential answer to that question or that contemplation. This is what it's really all about. Many times when our teacher gave us these contemplations, we would sit with him, and he would go to the contemplation. He would go into that contemplation a little bit, and then for that month, that was it. And then we would meet again and go over our experience of that contemplation. And many, many times, I know in myself especially, I would think, well, gee, I don't think I really did this contemplation. I don't think it was working. I don't, blah, blah, blah. Wherein what was happening was the contemplation was fully working, but I was processing whatever was in me that was contrary to that contemplation during that month. So in my experience, I experienced the upheaval and the movement of contrary information in myself, be it energetic, be it in thoughts, be it in emotions and so forth. So it was like I would be piqued all that month in relation to that contemplation, and that was the job that it had. It was to challenge yourself about who you are, and then as you meditate and live a holistic lifestyle, if you have that intention that you gain from these contemplations, it will do the work of helping you to clear out whatever is contrary to the truth of who you are. That's it. It's a tool. It's a meditator's tool for their journey to oneness and to experience their own oneness, their holistic truth. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, so that you can choose to be the truth that you are wherever you show up. So that's enough for today. I will be back again next week with another contemplation to share with you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next Monday.